Welcome to the studio, and thanks for joining us for another edition of Live in 5. I happen to think that, according to my rough calculation, this might be the 218th edition and episode of Live at 5 since the pandemic struck, and the strong likelihood is that even when, thank God, we're all done with COVID-19, the novel coronavirus of 2019, and we can put that behind us, we will still be having Live at 5 episodes. That's my guess. 18 is, of course, a holy number. It corresponds with the word chai, which means alive, and we want to just send our blessings for well-being and life to all of those whose lives are unfortunately being threatened by a barrage of attack, of violence, of terror, of rockets landing all around their heads. My children in Herzliya, I have married kids in Herzliya who sent me a picture of their shoes as they were preparing to go to bed, because the strong likelihood is that, just like last night, they will be awoken by rocket sirens in the middle of the night, and they will have to get up and run down to the bomb shelter. And so they put their shoes by their bed, sent me a little picture, but thank God they are okay. Somewhat traumatized, but they are okay. There are some who are not. And it's a very, it's a very uncomfortable thing. This morning I was able to speak with my friend Ross Kaminsky on the monthly Ross and Rabbi show that we do together on the radio, and he really wanted us to discuss the news and with a little bit of analysis. And although this is not a news program, it does look like I'm sitting in the newsroom here. So I'm going to just talk about it just for a minute. The truth is that we're unfortunately treated to quite a lot of misinformation and misleading perspective if we simply consume the news that we see and read all around us. If we will be grossly misinformed, and we're very, very likely to develop a very skewed perspective on the culpability of what's going on, because there is really just a shocking and overwhelming anti-Israel bias on behalf of the media when these things are reported. And it's very troubling. And that was the subject of our radio show this morning. I couldn't have said it better than Ross himself, who talked about how not only frustrating it is, but how angry one could become. And I think part of the anger that we respond with is the sheer irrationality of it. Because if a person would be willing to take some time to take a long, hard look at what's going on, to perhaps collect a few more facts, they would find that there is a very different picture that emerges. Now, what I mean to say is like this: whenever, and we feel like this is unfortunately not the first time. It has been. It is the first time in a while. There's been many years where there was a tremendous quiet, tremendous respite from these kinds of violent and terrorist attacks on of this magnitude. But we're not unfamiliar with it. In my lifetime, when I lived in Israel for 8 years, we lived through what was known as the Second Intifada, and there was the suicide bus bombings spate of 2000 and 2001, and it was a very scary time. And when these things are reported, often there seems to be the implication of a moral equivalency between the aggressors and the victims. That is perhaps the most unfortunate and unacceptable bias that we see in the news. So when for example, an angry mob of violent rioters erupts and attacks Jews in Jerusalem from the Temple Mount because they're celebrating Ramadan, and because this is just the way that they that whatever has upset them. When the police are called in to protect the rest of the city, to quell the violence and to stop the riot. So the news report that as like some sort of a a tit for tat back and forth with a ball game, like a ball game, like the score is 3-1. They're up, they're down. How many casualties on each side? As if they're both just players in some sick game. And the impression given is, oh yeah, well, they're fighting again. Everybody must be wrong. I was taught this lesson when I was when I was a young married guy. It was a parenting lesson. So you're a parent of young kids, and your kids are quibbling. They're fighting. So you could go and you could just say, okay, everybody stop it, and you go to your rooms, no fighting, and everybody's in trouble. You could say that, but it's a bit of a disservice, because what you should really say is, okay, let's sit down, let's talk about it. What's the problem? Who started things? Who got upset? And who stepped over the line? And there, because it does not, because not when everyone's fighting, it doesn't mean that everyone was wrong. It could mean that someone started things. That person has to take responsibility, and someone has unfortunately been pushed into a defensive posture. That is absolutely the case here. If there weren't violent rioting erupting on the Temple Mount by the Muslims celebrating Ramadan, there would have been no police activity in the holy city of Jerusalem on Yom Yerushalayim, on Jerusalem Day. There would have been no need for it. And any casualties that were sustained by the rioters are their own fault for instigating. The police do the best job they can to protect the lives and the safety of the perpetrators of the riot and the violence. And you know what? If those folks are harmed by their own riotous violence, then they're to blame. And there needs to be clarity about that. It's an unfortunate reality that where when we protect ourselves from hundreds, there have been over 800 rockets that have been fired into central metropolis Israel. Then my kids live in Herzliya, north of Tel Aviv, and they're running for cover. Okay, this is an unacceptable attack. It is an unwarranted. It is unprovoked. It is as abhorrent as it could possibly be. It is terrorism, plain and simple. Launching, missiles wantonly in major civilian population centers. There's nothing to call it other than just offensive terrorism and abhorrent violence. And when the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, highlight on the defensive word here, when they are called in to have to protect their own citizenry. So that is not some sort of there's no moral equivalency here. They are the provocators, and we are forced to be on the defensive to defend our own citizenry from attack, from death. And there have been casualties. There have been Israelis killed. And once that's the case, we have no choice but to defend ourselves and to stop the attackers. So just to show you and to remind you of the absolute difference between the two. When they respond to try to stop the attacking, rocket launching terrorist, the Israeli Defense Force sends word, we're about to blow up this building. If you value your lives, evacuate, so that you shouldn't be harmed. Can you imagine? That's in self-defense. Someone's sitting here shooting at you, and you say, by the way, please put down your weapon and back away. I'm going to destroy it. Hello, the length to which we go to protect the lives and the well-being and the health and the safety of our offenders, of the instigators of all this violence is shocking. And for some reason, the world misses that, and they take up the cause of the Palestinian terrorists. We hate terrorism in America. Terrorism, we hate that. Domestic terrorism is what we call it. There's nothing more malicious to us than that, more loathsome. And yet here, the American news takes up the cause as if to say that Israel is the aggressor. It's absurd. It's shockingly absurd, and it's frustratingly absurd. And so our job, there actually is a mitzvah in the Torah that da masha tashiv. Da masha tashiv means that we should know how to respond. That means when people bring these kinds of things up, that we have to know how to respond. So, for example, one of our guests who just chatted in that why doesn't the news media report that the Temple Mount, the Al-Aqsa Mosque on the Temple Mount has been used to stockpile Molotov cocktails and other instruments of violence and harm. In it, supposedly it's a mosque. You're worshipers. You want to celebrate your holiday? Come up there and do so peacefully. Don't stockpile weaponry in your mosque, and then and then shrag chai v'kayim. When there's police that have to storm up there and protect our citizenry from you. It's a shocker. So this mitzvah dam tashiv means we have to be able to answer, to speak up. And unfortunately, if the if the world and the media is so misinformed and biased against us with such an erroneous perspective and slant on the reporting, then it does fall to some degree upon our shoulders to be able to to speak out publicly and to clarify. You have to know how to respond. And I'll tell you this: sometimes certain people, and I'm not even the best at this. Some people are very eloquent and very well informed and knowledgeable, and they could argue our case better than others. And maybe that's you. Maybe it's not you. It's not necessarily even me. But one thing that we can all do is we can all know where to point people for more information. I mean, you can't necessarily say, make the case yourself, but you could say, I do think that, that the news article that you're quoting, sir, is perhaps biased. And could I offer you a link to something that might give you a broader perspective? You could say that, and you need to know where to send people. You need to know what's a good source of better information. I mentioned one or two just in terms of news sources this week. I happen to like there's something called the Jewish News Syndicate, jns.org, and you can sign up for a free email and you can get their headlines and read their articles. And you could always forward one, post one, or direct people to read their articles themselves. I think that's one great place, and there are others, okay? But knowing where to direct people for more information, if you can't give them the information yourself, is not so hard, and it's something we can all do. And I think that it's an appropriate thing, and in part because Israel, as the only Jewish country on the planet, is an embodiment of the Jewish people, and as such, when the nation of Israel, when the country of Israel is criticized, effectively the Jewish people are being criticized. When Israel comes under attack, all of the Jewish people are coming under attack. And therefore, we, not so much that we need to defend ourselves, but we are tasked with the divine responsibility to be the chosen people, the people of the book, to represent God's honor, to live in a moral and ethical standard that God expects of us. And the world is supposed to see that. And when the world sees anything else, then it's our job to fix that. Now, there are a couple ways that we fix that. The first way is, if the world's just misinformed, we could educate them. We could offer to share resources. You don't realize, perhaps, sir, the degree to which the IDF, the lengths to which they go to protect the lives of their attackers and their enemies. And there are many, many great resources out there if you'd like to hear more about that, sir. And I'd like to share them with you. Well, I'm happy to share some with you, et cetera, et cetera. There are things that we need to share. But in addition to that, let me now take our conversation a little bit in a different direction and talk about what I think is the next follow-up to this topic, which is, besides just being an advocate, a vocal advocate for Israel and for the Jewish people in the way that I just described, what else can we do? What can we do? Because when we sit over here in Denver, Colorado, and thank God the air raid sirens are not raining down on our heads. Did anybody hear the air raid test siren that went off this morning? Because every Thursday at 11, every Thursday, I think once a month or something like that, they test the air raid siren system right here in Denver. And when that siren went off, and I heard it this morning, boy, did that rattle in my ears. I was thinking, what if this were real? Of course, I know it's not, because we're in Denver and it's never real, thank God. But what if it were real? And my kids, our kids are woken up in the middle of the night and it's real. So we, thank God, are in Denver. We are safe and we're sound, and these rockets aren't falling on our heads. But what can we do? What should we really do? And that is the active question. And it to some degree, it's the same question that we asked last week after the terrible news of the loss of 45 lives on Lag BaOmer in Meron in a terrible accident. We weren't upset with anyone, but we were reeling from a historic tragedy, from a terrible tragedy. And the question is the same. Well, what can we do? What do we do with that? How do we make lemonade? How do we grow from this? How do we do something positive with this horrible moment? And that's the question. What do we do? So what do we do? And I think that the answer that we gave last week just can't be, it can't be under repeated or oft enough repeated. We need to have the clarity that that what we do as the Jewish people in responding to these messages, to these eye-opening moments, is that we have to recognize what the ultimate solution will be. So when you're talking about a tragedy like lives lost in a terrible crowd in a shocking accident, it's not quite as clear, perhaps. But when we're talking about armed conflict in the Middle East, the question really becomes, and I was asked this earlier today. Well, what is the solution here? Like, what is the hope? Where's the end? When is the end of this going to come? Where is it going to come from? What do we consider to be the goal, the solution? What's our end game? I like to be that kind of person who, when we get involved into something, we're heading into a meeting or a class or a project or even a conversation, I want to know what my goal is. What am I trying to accomplish here? Tell me what the end game is. I want to make sure and get to that goal. I have to know what it is so that I can accomplish it. I don't want to waste my time. What's the goal here? And maybe we'll make that the word of the day. The word of the day is tachlis. And tachlis is a word which means this is what my ambition, my aim, my goal. This is what I'm out for. Let's talk tachlis, we say. Let's get to the bottom line. Right, Bob? So the tachlis is, what's the goal here? What will be the solution to the Middle East conflict? Now, I'm going to shock you when I say this, but the firm, authentic, time-honored Jewish perspective on what is the solution to peace in the Middle East is there's really one thing and one thing only, and that is the Messianic era. You think I'm kidding? There's no substitute. There's no other solution that will come about. That's nothing that's going to work. There's one solution only, and that is, it's going to take God Almighty to step in and put this thing to a bed and put it to close. That's what it's going to take. The Jewish people are never going to be at peace in our homeland until then. And you know what? It says that very clearly in black and white in the parsha that we read in the Torah last week. Read it. Go back and look at it again. It's what it says. You're not going to be able to dwell in the land of Israel in peace until you and I are good, says God, until the Jewish people are what I want it to be. And then I will take care of your enemies. I will make sure your borders are peaceful. I will take care of the problems. That's the solution. And the Torah basically said to us, there won't be another solution. That's the solution. And for the, 70 years that we've lived in, under our own steam here, our autonomous nation of Israel, there hasn't been a moment of peace. If it's not a threat from without, it's a threat from within. If it's not a terrorism, it's war. If it's not this country, it's that country. If it's not this border, it's that border. It's great to be there, but there's no peace. When will the peace come? When does that part come? When do we get that part? So the Torah says that God says, I'll provide that part. I will secure your borders. You'll be prosperous. It'll be peaceful. You'll dwell in your land, and it'll be good for you. When? So that's the goal. That's the tachlis of the Jewish people. We have to become that nation about which God says, I'm coming out of retirement. I made 10 plagues a while back, and then I've been in the locker room. I'm willing to come out again for you people, but you got to get your act together. The Jewish people, we get our act together, and then we'll have that same divine protection that we've had in our past. We've had it. We've seen it. We've experienced it. We know it's there for us. But God says you'll get it when you've achieved the tachlis. So when the question is asked, what do we do? What can we do? What should we do? How can we make a difference? How can we move the ball a little further towards the tachlis, towards the goal? The answer is we need to double down our efforts as a nation to be that people that merits that divine protection. That's what we do. We invest ourselves even more significantly in Judaism, in the Torah, in becoming the nation that God took us out of Egypt to be. And that's who we are. And that's what we need to do. And when we get there, God willing, very, very soon, then we'll have a miraculous protection that there won't be missiles that have to be shot out of the sky before they land on our heads. They just won't get off the ground in the first place. That's the piece we're looking for. Now, the reason that I mention this is because this is my working life, if you will. My efforts here at the Jewish Experience are to try to inspire this commitment to this dedication to this involvement and engagement in Judaism, in the Torah and Jewish life. That's what we do here at the Jewish Experience. That's what we're all about. And we have one goal. The goal ultimately is we'll bring peace in the Middle East right here from Denver. We're starting right here in Denver, Colorado. And we're starting right here today. So to segue from that into the last bit of excitement, we are delighted to be in the midst of a very exciting effort along these lines of everything we just said. It's an attempt to gather together all of those we can reach to study a little bit extra Torah, to commit to engaging in the wisdom of the ancient wisdom of the Jewish people, learning about what God's looking for from us. What does it look like, this great nation that he wants to protect? What does it look like? So the Torah is the instruction book, and that's what we need to bone up on and get involved in a little further. And so, we have a program which we launched today at noon. And it's going on for just till tomorrow at 8 p.m. And it's a crowd learning campaign. It's called Epic Sinai Pass. Get your Epic Pass, except it's an Epic Sinai Pass. You Colorado people know what the Epic Pass is. And the point and the goal is that we should be able to get hundreds and hundreds of people, maybe into the thousands, to be able to just commit to a little bit of more commitment of Torah learning. Just do a little bit of extra time, a little bit of learning that you would maybe you're already doing some. Great. That also counts. Maybe you could even push the envelope a little bit and do a little more. That's even better. But if all of us are doing that together, if we're cognizant of our identity as the people of the book, the Jewish people, so then we've got to do that. Thanks for joining. For those of you who have already signed up, and if you haven't and you'd like to, please do. You can find it in our Jewish Experience webpage, on our Facebook page. You can click. I'll post the link here in the chat for those of you who are with us on Zoom. And if you're not, please join us tomorrow night on Zoom at the same time, live at 5. I'm going to get back to the campaign a little bit, everybody. So we're going to call it here for tonight. Have a wonderful and a healthy and a holy evening. Thank you for being with us. And if you will join together in our crowd learning campaign, and we'll continue to learn Torah together, God willing, we will get to see the end of this conflict in our lifetime very, very soon.